My gosh. Oh, we're struggling. Anyways, welcome back. How's everybody doing today? My name is John. This is my channel, The Origin Factory. It's Monday, April 7th, 2025. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about anodizing. Not so much how to do it, but kind of the ins and outs of it, what it is in a nutshell, and how, decide if you really want to do it or not type stuff. And before I get any deeper into that, I want to thank our subscribers. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're willing to do so, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you subscribed already, if you could continue to support us by either like, commenting, or sharing. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook as The Origin Factory. So I'm going to pull up a little diagram here of kind of the steps of anodizing. So if you look in the upper left, so say you're going to anodize a set of wheels, and you want to change the color of them, for example. And so we're going to go on the upper left, and let's say those wheels are green, and use those green dots as green paint. Well, we'll say they're green anodized, not paint. We'll get into the reason why it should be anodizing and not paint. But anyway, so we're going to say we have a green wheel up here. First thing they're going to do is they're going to clean it. And by cleaning it usually means degreasing. And it's all of these steps are in different vats or tanks or whatever you want to call them. So there's a cleaning tank, an etching tank, an anodizing tank, a coloring tank, a sealing tank. And so every time they go through that process, so the cleaning one, they're going to run it through a tank of degreaser and make sure there's no oil, no residue, nothing left on it, that kind of stuff. And then after that, well, before they do etching, they would strip the color. So if it had a color, if it didn't have a color, if it was a raw piece, it would go straight to etching. So there would be an extra step in here if it was a piece of aluminum that was already anodized. And mind you, anodizing is primarily for aluminum. So we're talking aluminum parts like wheels, chassis parts, whatever, bumpers, whatever you might have. So then after, if there's any color on it that's been stripped, then you go through an etching process. And what that does, it removes the natural oxide layer that occurs on aluminum just from being exposed to air. And then they're going to, from there, it's going to come out of that tank and it's going to get washed and cleaned again. So you're always rinsing the parts off to remove whatever chemical it was last in, because you don't want cross-contamination. What's cross-contamination? Carrying one chemical from the previous process into the next process, because it'll make it less effective. So every time the part goes into one of these vats, these tanks, whatever, for each step of the process, they have to have everything removed from the previous process. So then when we go into the anodizing process, now that is an electrochemical process, and your part is going to be submerged in a solution. It's usually, it has to be, it's an electrolytic solution, because electricity has to transmit through the chemical, and it's usually like sulfuric acid for the anodizing process, and it's voltage, DC, I believe, usually using like 60 volts of DC, I think it is, and usually your part is the anode, and then the cathode is the ground, and you're basically completing a circuit through the solution. But what it's doing while it's in the solution, it's creating an oxide layer, and that's what these fingers are on the top of the part as you look in the almost center picture. So this oxide layer is to add protection to the part, whether it be a chemical resistance, or it also makes it a little bit stronger, harder, so it's less likely to scratch, more durable, that kind of thing. And that's the main intent behind anodizing, is to increase the durability of the part. Adding color to it was something, I mean, that's kind of the reason we're more interested into it, but that's kind of like a bonus thing part of it, because the coloring part of it is basically just a dye. I mean, so you'll come out of the anodizing tank, we'll wash it off again and remove all the sulfuric acid, and then we'll go into the coloring tank. And I think usually the coloring process is heated, and that helps the part accept the color better, as far as the richness of the color, the depth of it. And once it comes out of there, we got to rinse it again. I mean, it will not rinse off the part. It's on there good, because it does get into the grains and stuff like that. Now, the last step here is called sealing. Now here's where you kind of run into the problems sometimes dealing with like an individual doing it out of his home. They're not, if they didn't, let me simplify a little bit. Check out who you're doing business with. But you mean if you're doing with a big professional shop, just make sure you got referrals, because I found out not everybody does the sealing process. Some just know how to color them. And the importance of the sealing process is to make sure the color doesn't wash out with the sunlight and lose its brilliance and get sun faded. And so it's kind of like clear coat in painting, like automotive paint. It protects the color from ultraviolet rays. And that'll make the color stay brighter longer, because your color of your parts can last for, if it's in direct sunlight for a long period of time, you might be able to get 10 to 20 years out of it before it starts to fade. And I've had parts done in the past that they didn't clear them or seal them. And it was a motorcycle part. The motorcycle spent a lot of time out in the sun, and it started to sun fade after a couple of years. The color started to bleed, and it gets chalky. It doesn't look as bright or brilliant. And so that's the importance of making sure it's been sealed. I would even ask that, are you going to seal the color? If he doesn't know what that means, then go somewhere else. A big shop will know what you mean. So anyways, so then it gets sealed, and that's to help, like I said, help protect the color. So now what I am doing is pull up this here. We got my H10 Origin chassis here. And the H10 Origin chassis is multiple pieces. And I ordered mine in clear. And the reason I ordered it in clear and not the color I wanted is because I'm having other parts anodized, which I knew I was going to do ahead of time. And to make sure everything matches, the cage needs to be done the same time with the other parts. And since I was already committed to doing the other parts, mainly because, I'll get to that in a minute, but so I already knew I was going to be stripping it. And Vanquish kind of hinted at that if you ordered more common colors or popular colors, you might get it quicker. And I got mine quicker than some people. So first thing I'm going to do is strip it all down. Like this black piece in the front here, that's plastic. So of course that needs to be removed, because anodizing is just for the aluminum parts. And the fasteners on here are steel. So you need to remove those too, because you cannot anodize the fasteners. Plus, you want all your assemblies broken down to the individual pieces, so you make sure the color gets everywhere that you want it. Because if you didn't take the cage halves apart, you might have rings. You might have a visible ring or stain in the color in the areas it matches up to, because the color wasn't able to get in and that kind of stuff. So to do it properly, you need to break it down as much as possible. Every piece that can be taken apart in individual pieces needs to have that done. So I'll zoom ahead a little bit here. Now we got her down to the individual sides. There's the roof section. I forgot to take the roof support off, so we need to loosen that up, take that apart. Now we're broken. Now we got every piece broken down to each individual pieces. So now the cage is ready to go to the anodizer. But we're also doing the axles. So zoom ahead a little bit. So there's our focus. There we go. So there's our axle housings, the third member, the knuckles, the end caps for the rear axle, servo mount. Right now I'm digging the rod ends out. They're going to be the same color as the cage. And so, think about that too with these aluminum rod ends. Vanquish is generally selling them clear or raw or whatever they are. And they're doing some limited, once in a while, they're doing some limited availability giveaway type stuff with their promotions where you can get colored ones. Well, just know that they're aluminum. You could get those anodized and buy the clear ones. You can do it all on your own. You don't have to wait for a batch to come out that's for sale and pay some exorbitant price from somebody who's hawking them because they're limited color and paying that upcharge, because of collectability or rarity or whatever. Anodizing isn't rare, but getting one that was done by Vanquish, I suppose if you want it to be factory done by them, whatever, I guess that adds to its collectability. But anyways, so now we're also taking out the pieces that go on the back of the side panel that holds the battery tray and all that fun stuff. Those are going to be chassis color. So yeah, so now we're gonna box up all these parts and we're gonna take them to the anodizer. So I took them to the anodizer, boy, about a week and a half ago or so, because I got my Origin. Let's see, the beginning of March or 12th, March 12th, somewhere in there. Anyways, a couple weeks ago. So I took it out, and another thing with anodizing, get referrals, get on the groups on Facebook, any groups that you're active in with that does where you know people have done it, or larger groups, and just ask who have you used for anodizing, because I've mailed parts around the country just to find people for referrals. I'm currently working with a shop that's actually where I live, which is a very big shop, and I'm grateful they're willing to do small projects, because generally these big shops are doing it for right after manufacturing. So like the shop I'm dealing with, they do firearms, they do aircraft parts, they do medical stuff, they do all brand new manufactured parts for the most part, stuff that's comes in a big crate, hundreds of pieces. They run them through and send them back out again. And they usually try to do it in like 7 to 10 days. So they're pretty quick. Downside to it with a big shop is minimum batch pricing. So it's roughly about $200 per color. So, but what's good about that is if you're doing a lot of pieces, like not that long ago, I did a batch size of like 60 pieces in one color. And so at $200, we're getting around $3 a piece, which isn't bad. Now, when you deal with a smaller independent person, they usually charge you per piece. And so you kind of weigh out the good with the bad with stuff like that, I've had good luck and I've had bad luck with independent people. Bad luck in the way that one went out of business, no longer doing it. One sat on the parts for a long time. Just little crap like that. Price effective or, priced accordingly. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot less expensive than these minimum batch sizes. But now I'm looking for consistency and, professionalism, and make sure I get the stuff right away and promise times and stuff like that. So I'm using this larger shop now, which means that now when I want to do anodizing, I usually don't have time sensitive projects, or I have a box of parts that I start collecting for future projects. And I have something that's time sensitive, then I'll run all the parts together. Meaning, so if I do like 60 pieces, like that previous batch, I'm getting it down to like $3 a piece. But like if you just have a set of wheels you want to do, one set of 4 wheels, for an RC, $200 at $50 a wheel, that's a lot of money. Yeah, nobody wants to stick another $200 into their $150 set of wheels or whatever, whatever you paid for them. And that's how I kind of fell into this. Was I was starting to buy spec RC wheels, and most of the time you're buying them raw from them. So now I just start collecting parts for future projects, and then when I'm ready to do a batch of anodizing, I make sure I have enough parts. Or I may contact my friends and say, hey, I'm going to do some anodizing soon. Are you interested? And then get them out on the deal, and it gets them a lower price. It gets me a lower price. And, it's beneficial that way. You got to do a little networking, but you get the price down. You get it from a place that can do it really quick. The other downside from the large shop is, they do have all your basic colors, but when you see some of these really crazy colors, like these hot pinks and stuff, yeah, the shop I'm working with doesn't do colors like that. They do have a pink, they do have a blue, a green, a red, they have all your basic colors. I think they have like 10 or 12 colors, but they're very neutral. They're not exotic colors, not high impact, super bright, they're green. They have like an olive drab, kind of like an army green, and they have kind of like a green that's like, would you say like John Deere tractor green, but they don't have like a neon green, for example. They do have a pink, but they don't have a hot pink. So if you can be content with the limited color availability, then yeah, this route may work for you, for example. But if you really want some exotic colors and some splash graphics, in the anodizing, then you might have to go through a person that does like paintball guns, for example. They do a lot of that crazy colors and stuff like that. So it's all a matter of doing a bunch of research before you get into it any deeper and just figure out if you really want to do it, or if you have to do it for the project, then figure out the way that works best for you. Now, the benefits and the disadvantages of using like Cerakote and powder coat. So I've bought old parts that I needed for restorations of like my VS410 Origins, and I've bought parts that were powder coated. What a nightmare trying to get the powder coating, remove them, and restore them back to anodizing. I stuck a lot of crazy time into a few pieces, and where powder coating and Cerakoting is good, it's very durable. It's tough to get off. It's really tough, and it doesn't really come off very well with chemical stripping. Believe me, I've tried everything I could figure out and everything I could research: acetone, MEK, lacquer thinner. Some of it will soften, but it's impossible to get all of it off. And if you don't get all of it off, you can't anodize it again. So I was trying to restore these parts for a VS410 Origin. And yeah, I got some parts that are just garbage because I could not get the powder coating off. Some of them were able to be saved, but they're not very good. And they're just going to have to be used for projects where people don't expect it perfect, for example. So where I'm going with this, Cerakoting and powder coating, if you're content with never using the part again or never wanting to change the color of it, you think it'll be good for the rest of your life or your rest of owning it, yeah, go right ahead. But if you think you're ever going to want to change the color, it's much easier to strip anodizing and do anodizing again. I mean, it's a chemical strip process that's much more effective, and it's super simple, and the results are almost guaranteed. Removing powder coating, Cerakoting, it's a gamble. Because of how strong it is, and it's when you're attached to like an aluminum piece. Aluminum is, it's not a tough metal like steel, so it's not resistant to sandblasting, meaning the metal itself. And like the one shop told me, he says, we're going to change the dimensions of this, trying to strip it. And what he's saying is it's going to take metal off. You're going to change the way it looks, trying to get that powder coating off. And what's going to cause unevenness in the surface and craters. And yeah, I had one of those pieces, they tried to strip it off with sandblasting it and just about destroyed the part. It was, that was just like, that sucked. Because some of these parts you can't buy anymore, and that's the reason why I'm restoring them, is they're just not available. So think about the benefits and the pluses and minuses of this. That's what I'm trying to get you informed on, is just think about it, because there's a lot of people offering Cerakoting right now. It's a little bit easier process than anodizing, not as many chemicals and stuff, and it's a little bit easier for your average person to do it, but it's a little bit more of it's a lot more of a problem if you ever want to remove it. So keep that in mind. And its pricing isn't that much different than anodizing right now, from what I've been checking on. So, but Cerakoting, powder coating, you can do on steel parts. Also, anodizing is strictly for aluminum. So keep that in mind too. So anyways, my parts are going to be showing up, I'm hoping this week, because they were saying 7 to 10 days. And I think we're just about coming up to 2 weeks here at the end of next week. So I'm hoping to see them this week. And when they get in, we'll take another look at it. We'll take a look at the results, and we'll do another video on that and do some assembly work. So hopefully, guys, that gave you a little information on anodizing and if it's right for you and how to check it out a little bit. Definitely get referrals from your community of whoever you associate with, or groups, or, for your hobby, if it's for a hobby, that kind of stuff. Check out shops in your area too. Talk to them in person, but do some research. I wouldn't just send parts off blindly without a referral at least. Anyways, thank you very much for hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you to our subscribers. You guys are awesome. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're willing to do so, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you subscribed already, if you continue to support us by the like, comment, or sharing. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook as The Origin Factory. So anyways, guys, have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. God bless.